Hi everyone, welcome back to ShePropTalk. I'm Beverly from Down in Creative Studios, and today I have two very special guests. I'm very excited to talk to both of them. The editor-in-chief from the Cosplay Journal. Hello, Holly.
Hello. Hi.
And I also have Meg, who is the photographer. You're the main photographer for the Cosplay Journal? Awesome.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today and talking to me on the podcast.
Awesome. It's good to be chatting, especially since what we're doing is in the UK and in the States. It's really cool to be talking to people all over the world about it.
Yes. And I thank you for taking the time. I know this is, again, short notice. I seem to do that to all of my guests. Like, hey, can you talk, maybe tomorrow?
It's all right. No,
some days are lazy days.
We don't have anything on. We're just making cosplay. That's fine.
Right. Well, so the two of you, are you the... did the Cosplay Journal... So let's back up just a little bit for our listeners. Can you please tell us what the Cosplay Journal is?
Okay, so the Cosplay Journal is essentially a coffee table style magazine about cosplay and cosplay lifestyle for people who you can either be very involved in the scene or complete beginners and everything in between. What we do is we focus on the diversity of the scene, be that through craft or the people involved, and showcasing that. So people who are from every different background, any different race, gender, sexuality, anything, cosplay is for everybody. But we also want to showcase all sorts of different crafts, be they modern crafts like using 3D printing or graphic design, or laser cutters or anything like that, or very old-fashioned, old-school crafts like embroidery and leatherwork, as well as things like performance, videography, photography, everything. There is so much as part of cosplay that people forget about. They just see person in costume and that's kind of it, and then there's so much more to it than that, which obviously you guys talk about a lot, and it's something that the SheProp community is so good on, about promoting all these different areas that, okay, you might not wear cosplay, but if you're making videos about it or you're promoting it online, you're, a photographer, you're still part of the community, whether you're wearing the costume or not. And we love looking at every angle of it like that. So we try and get as many people as possible involved.
That's amazing. Well, you're in you just released your second volume.
Yes, and we are releasing the third in a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
So the quickest turnover we can manage. Such a small team, we can't go faster, but it's good.
That's pretty incredible. So I can only imagine the immense amount of work that goes into creating a publication like this. How do you find the time? And do you still, because you are, Holly, you're a cosplayer as well.
Yeah.
And Meg, you're a photographer. So how do you find time to fit all of that? Has this project been kind of all encompassing, or your con crunch is now release date crunch?
Yes, it was with the first issue.
It was definitely. The second one less so, but the first one definitely.
First one was very intense.
Essentially the journal has become my day job. Because I'm a journalist in real life, that's my job. So the journal has become very much my main project while I freelance on the side, which is great for me because it means I have my own publication, which is great, and I'm in charge of that. So that's better than working for other people. Doing some roundabouts in that regard, I think. But, it does put a lot of pressure on me, especially getting it out, like you said, for deadlines and stuff, because I think I do everything.
Yeah, you do a lot.
I do,
wow. You do a lot.
I am...
And you throw me some curveballs as well.
Head of the writing team, so I organise all the writers, I find all the writers, I then edit their work. I'll also be in charge of making sure all the models are on time for photo shoots, finding the locations.
Oh, wow.
Everything. And you're very good. You're
your keeper, so I'm like, it's okay, they're there.
You're crying.
And I'll listen to all their woes, so it's fine.
This sounds very much like cosplay. Like you do everything. You manage everything. You usually, hopefully, have someone that is supporting you and helping you along and helping you take care of little details along the way and being your team.
That's pretty much it.
That's exactly it.
I feel like the journal is pretty much an extension of my life as a cosplayer.
It has such a strong vibe of it.
It's like, oh no, I started this like 4 months ago and it's still not finished and the deadline is there. How has this happened? I was so prepared.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think this kind of project is incredible, and I love seeing that that people are using cosplay as a springboard into another part of their lives, their everyday lives, the things that they love to do, or something that they're interested in doing, like taking cosplay into that second level, if you will. Like for me, it was doing this podcast, which was kind of out of my comfort zone, but something I really wanted to do so I could talk to folks like you. So how wonderful has it been to have this extension of yourself, of yourselves, taking your talents and your interests into this other media?
I mean,
I guess for you, because this is your day, like you are
my
an
job,
editor.
yeah. So this was actually kind of the other way around in that I got to be able to take my hobby of cosplay and bring that into what I did or what I was doing kind of every day, because the Cosplay Journal was brought to me by the publishers we're working with. Like, well, not the journal itself. A kind of an idea of creating a cosplay book was sort of
Just pictures.
Yeah, just pictures. And I was like, no one's going to buy a book that's just pictures. They've tried that. People have done that, right? That book exists.
Yeah.
And honestly, the cosplay community wants more. And so for me, it was very much going, well, I do this as a job, so why don't I bring all my expertise from that side of my life and put them into cosplay? So it was more like being able to take something that has been... So I've been a cosplayer since I was about 14.
Wow.
Long time. And being able to kind of go, oh, this thing was kind of so separate and kind of on its own, and I never really knew how to attach it to the rest of my life, and suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And what that's done, actually, because I have the passion for cosplay in the same way as I have passion for writing, is that it suddenly springboarded me and everything that I'm doing in my career, because my passion is showing through in both places at once. And so it's suddenly like, oh, this is big. This is something new and this is something different. And people are taking notice of that. So for me, it's been a massive change and a massive boost to not only my confidence, but also what I'm doing as a writer.
Yeah.
That was me.
Sorry. And yeah, it's been very, very interesting as a development thing, because I was pure and simple a writer, a journalist. That's what I did. I wasn't a manager or an editor beforehand. And now I am very much more those things. I'm very much the editor. I'm very much in charge. And having to organize people and micromanage all these situations and all this sort of stuff to like the nth degree, because I am a horrible perfectionist. And if I wasn't, I don't think it would work. I have moments where I'm like, I am Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. Oh, wonderful. And then I have moments where I'm like, like, why did I not see this in The Devil Wears Prada? No, it's a lie. I feel like I have these swings and roundabouts from like Meryl Streep to like Mina in Ugly Betty, and that's like the two extremes
Crying
of my
in the
life.
shower,
Yeah.
going, I don't want to see this no more.
It's great though. It's really good fun. So I would say that's it. It's more that kind of I brought cosplay closer to what I do every day, which is really good.
Yeah, that's
you're
beautiful.
A little different.
Yeah, I'm pretty different actually, because I wasn't really a big photographer. Like I did it for my friends at conventions. I was also a cosplayer as well, so I was like, hey, it's just me and my guys, we're having a good time. Yeah. And then I think it was like one of the first conventions we sort of like went properly together to.
Yeah.
And I had my camera with me, and I was like, oh, I'll take a few photos. And you're like, those are pretty good. Like, you should do this more often. And you're still like bugging me for edits on that lovely graphic shoot. And yeah, so I sort of like I wasn't really a person photographer. I was a person. I did macro photography, so like bugs and water and flowers.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I did very like just nature shots and all that. I really enjoyed that. But it was quite easy for me to transition into cosplay because I sort of just knew it, and I was like, oh, just catch people what they would like to see of themselves, seeing them in their power strikes. So, and then you made me go to university.
Hey, you should learn this.
You're like, how about you go and get a degree now?
And, that's excellent. Wow.
Yeah, so now I'm currently in study, because when you were starting the journal, I had left my job. I wasn't expecting to leave my job that soon, but I left my job, and I was a bit like floaty and lost. Because I wanted to be a professional golfer at one point. That was a weird time of my life. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was taking that sort of turn and finding new routes and just doing something I just enjoyed. And I knew that I was, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
What's really interesting working on the journal with you especially is because you're studying at the moment, every time we do a shoot,
it's different.
It's different, and like I've seen the improvement from volume 1 to volume 3.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll be like, with the first issue, I'll be like, oh my god, no, don't look at that anymore. Stop.
We're our own worst critics, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it is really nice to hear that sort of praise of like, you've improved so much between 1 and 2, and number 3 is just, again, next level. And I consider myself as a modest person with my photos, but even I'm like, yeah, it's definitely like I've really stepped up my game.
Yeah,
It's been really fun.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said of being able to look at your work and being confident that yes, you're learning along the way, but that your old work, there's definitely, it's valid and wonderful, and you can see those moments, and especially in a publication like the Cosplay Journal, which has distribution, and it's wonderful to be able to put yourself out there. It's kind of a vulnerability as well, which is something that we all kind of tackle as cosplayers and as artists, as photographers. I think that's wonderful. It's an ongoing story.
And you learn so much when you're sort of like thrown into it. Because am I the sole photographer for issue 1? Near enough the sole photographer.
Near enough, yeah.
So that was a lot of shoots. That was about 10 to 12 shoots, I would say. Yeah. And so that was a lot to be thrown into the deep end. Hundreds of photos were taken. Well, thousands of photos, but hundreds of photos were edited. And that was a lot in the turnaround, and it got quicker and quicker and quicker, which is that if you told me to do this many photos now, I'll be like, oh my god, no. But now that I've built up and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do like 40 in a day and be quite comfortable with that. Yeah.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
It's intense.
That's incredible.
It's honestly, it is the part what I need to do is the quick turnaround sort of stuff, because models might cancel and things get changed around, so you need to be ready to just go, yep, I can do that this weekend, let's go, and then edit it that same weekend where we can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at the roster of talent that you have on the second volume, and it is impressive. Yeah, you have collaborated and worked with so many amazing artists. That's got to be really incredible. What
it is
an amazing experience to work with them.
Every single cosplayer we work with is a joy, I have to
Yes.
say, and
They're
every
so
time we do a
lovely.
shoot, it's like,
We become friends.
yeah,
really.
you're having a really nice time.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a single shoot that's been a bad experience.
No.
Even when it's been cold and rainy and wet.
Got
at
cold.
7 in the morning when you're out.
Those are some bonding experiences.
Exactly.
Honestly, yeah. We were like all huddled up in the car, and then all these kids, because we went to this park, like forest area.
Like a public forest.
Yeah, public forest, and these kids just saw the Dragonborn, and they were like, "There's a Dragonborn in this forest."
And mine.
Yeah.
It was so funny. We're there like, please, we just want to be warm.
Yeah.
But, they're kids.
Yeah. And the park ranger stopped as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a day. It was a day.
We were like, please just leave us alone. We're so cold.
Oh my goodness.
It was good. It was really good. Like, we've always had only good responses from that. And what about the Ghost Rider and the
Oh my god. Okay, so in volume 1, which I don't know if you've seen, there's a Ghost Rider cosplayer who has like his head is full of LEDs.
It's like 27 LED batteries on his back.
It's a crazy amount of. So he
wow.
he actually, I took a behind the scenes picture on my phone just so you get an idea of this, and the amount of light coming out from like diffused on my phone, like I couldn't take a proper picture of him. It was really strange. Anyway, so we're doing this shoot, and we're kind of in a back alley around my town, kind of trying to make it look like grim and gritty like New York, despite being in like small town England, which doesn't look like that.
Work.
Anyway,
we made it work.
It was fine. We found a wall.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're taking this picture, and this family walked past with their dog, and their dog just loses it.
Oh, I bet.
Over
my
this
gosh.
flaming man. And the kids and the parents are like, oh, that's amazing, take some pictures, take some selfies, all this stuff, and he was really good and loving it. But the dog is just
Not
I
happy.
wish I'd got a film of it. Like them, I was like, your dog is clearly unhappy. these things. And they came back twice because they wanted to take more pictures, and we were just there like, oh my god, this poor animal.
Oh my gosh.
Traumatizing it. It was fine.
They were fine. It was just we've never had really a bad interaction with the public either.
No,
they're always interested.
Yeah,
that's the most positive response we've gotten.
I think pretty much any shoot we do in public, we'll have people come up and ask us what we're doing, and we'll explain, and they're normally like, that's really cool. And then normally, we've had a few times where people have asked had photos, and almost all the cosplayers, because they're used to cons and stuff, they're like, sure, fine. Yeah. We had a wonderful one with Vicky, who's the cover of Volume 2, the aerial cover, where really great shoot as well. So, long story short, we were shooting near where my aunt and uncle live, and my cousin is like 3, and he wanted to come and see the mermaid, so they brought him to see it.
Oh, wow.
Well, so she went straight into Disney Princess, the accent, with everything, wonderful, like completely, and he was just in love with her from the moment he saw her. It was wonderful.
It was
like,
so sweet.
He was just there like, oh, the mermaid, and we were like, oh no, we're never gonna get
he went full.
And it was just one of those things where you're like, this is so cute. It was lovely. Yeah, very, very cute. But yeah, I don't. Like, we have so many stories like that, because like every time it's just a laugh. It is. It's great.
Because our shoots are very relaxed as well.
Well, no, you're very relaxed. I'm like,
yeah, you're stressing
timing. We have this long.
Yeah, I'm chill. I make them relax, and then we get shots.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Well, those images of and I'm so sorry. What is the name of the aerial cosplayer?
Well, her name's Vicky, but she's Pegsicle.
Pegsicle. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's a disabled cosplayer, and she would class herself as her disability is partially invisible. So sometimes she needs to use a chair or a stick or something, but a lot of the time she doesn't. And EDS essentially it's muscle mobility. Yeah. So it affects her musculature, and so she can have things like heart palpitations as well along with this. So it's not just like the physicality of moving and walking. It can cause like quite severe heart issues. Like she can just pass out like that. Like it just go. So things like she's not allowed to drive and stuff like that. So the whole shoot we organised the whole shoot to be near her.
Yeah, local.
So we drove 2 hours to get to her and do the whole shoot near her. So had someone pick her up and take her back and everything so that we could work. And we actually had to make sure that we had to book the shoot on a day where she could have 2 days of work the day before and then days of work the day after, so that she could recover and be prepared for it.
Oh wow.
It's intense.
It was a really intense day actually, and she's amazing. And obviously she talks about that a lot in the interview and the piece that goes along with it. And the cost, we were kind of talking to her because she does a lot of Disney princesses, and I was like, well, which one would you want to do? And she was like, well, I want to do Ariel. And the kind of significance of Ariel as both the mermaid and the princess and all this sort of stuff, and the kind of the way the shoot fitted with her disability and that character felt very fortuitous, and it worked really beautifully. And I feel like the piece kind of came together in this wonderful way with that shoot and how she talks about her disability. And it was really important to us to put her front and center and be like, she is talking about this, and we're going to put her on the cover. And okay, sure, she's not in a wheelchair, but at the same time, is that the concept of the viewer, that disabled people should always be like that, or
fitting into their narrative?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it was very much kind of thinking about how to present it and how to kind of achieve this thing of being honest to her without, gosh, I sound like such a pretentious journalist, because I am. And to represent, like you said, an area of cosplay that isn't represented that much. So Volume 1, again, we made this was kind of my decision was very much to be like, Volume 1, we are putting a black woman on the cover. That's what we're doing. We're going to go in and we're going to be like, hey, we're not like every other cosplay magazine. We're going to showcase people who you don't often see, because I'm very aware of the fact that the cosplay community does often focus on light-skinned women.
Yes.
Who are often hypersexualized, and that's, if people want to do that, that's fine. That's totally their thing. We wanted to put Amelia, who's a very powerful black woman, as a powerful black woman. She's Teodama from Pirates of the Caribbean, onto the cover, and she looks incredible incredible. And I think it really kind of made the journal stand out.
I feel like she deserved the front cover.
She did. She got in a lake.
In November, she got in a lake.
She got in a lake in November, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
She's standing in the water, like up to her knees.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She was wearing wellies.
She was wearing wellies, but still, that dress got soaked.
She did such a good job.
She was such a champ.
Yeah.
And you were a champ as well, because you got in there as well. I was like, yeah, go in deeper. And then I didn't really realise. I was like, as a photographer, you're on high dry. I'm like, go further.
I'm like, I'm not going any further. It will go over the top of my wellies.
Well,
it was a good day.
That was a good day.
Yes. One of the things that I'm very conscious about is making sure that we have the voices of varying different people in the cosplay community. Yeah. Not just featured and doing interviews, but actually writing their own pieces and being able to, completely dictate their own voice in the journal. Because nobody wants to hear from me over and over again. That's so boring. Like, that would be like the Ollie show, and no one wants that. Please support me. So I do try and approach as many people as possible and try and get as many people involved in the journal as possible. And so we have kind of, I would say, a base group of 15 writers who we know we can go to, but I always try and get new people in, new people giving their opinions, new people bringing their stories, because if you're somebody who looks at cosplay online and all you see is this very prescribed version of what it is, which I think all of us would admit that, especially in the wider media, is a very certain look to cosplay. Especially you very rarely see plus size cosplayers unless it's a specific 10 amazing plus size cosplayers list or something.
Right.
Or you very rarely see people of color cosplaying and all that sort of stuff, unless it's kind of the stereotype cute Japanese girl, which has its own issues involved in it. Yeah. And I think if you see someone who looks like you cosplaying, you're going to go, oh my god, I can do that too, You're going to go, oh, I'm not excluded from this. So the big one we wanted to do is, in the UK, there's always been a kind of divide for young men in cosplay. They feel like they're not necessarily welcome. Or, especially in the past, it's definitely been more female dominated. And that's good in many ways, because it's nice that women have their own space. I think that's great. But I also wanted to make sure that young men, young black men, young Asian men could see themselves in cosplay and not feel afraid of it, because if they could get involved, then maybe all those amazing women who are involved would help them not make comments on the internet about girls' boobs. I don't know, maybe. Yeah. I'd love to see more guys learning to sew. I would love that. That would be great, especially since
they always think they have to make armor.
Yeah. I would love to see more guys learning to do the sewing and embroidery and stuff. That would be great, and it not be a feminine, in inverted commas, thing.
Yes.
As well as vice versa. So in the third volume coming up, we have a piece being written by, she's a mechanic, and she's writing about how she uses mechanics and engineering and electronics in her cosplay, and encouraging girls in STEM subjects.
Oh, awesome.
Because cosplay, I think it's seen as an art, but there's so much engineering and know-how of how to build a pair of wings, or
all the coding.
The coding of LEDs, the way people use electronics in their costumes, not just for lights, but for smoke machines and all this stuff. It's that's science, There is so much here.
So many elements to
it. So that's a really big thing for us. It's talking about that and being this is an area where there's a lot of girls, a lot of, women, whatever. So however you wish to identify. So why not say that what you're doing is the same as mechanics or the same as coding or anything like that? You're just as good at that.
Absolutely.
It's very cool. Also, people are now doing things like blacksmithing, which is awesome.
Oh my gosh. I know. It is. Every time I see someone that actually forged their armor or their weapon or their props, it's oh my gosh. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, they have included somewhere in their journey that they're documenting, and they're sharing those processes with people. And it's been awesome. For me, it's been, I got into cosplay a little bit later on in life, and it's been so wonderful to be able to learn new methods of doing things. And I mean, I don't know that I would ever have learned how to use a soldering iron to use LEDs, but suddenly with this hobby, it's like all of this stuff is accessible. And what I love about the Cosplay Journal is that you do have such a wide range of artists and makers that you have interviewed and that you have featured. It's really like a little bit of everything, and the stories and getting the origin stories, it's so nice to be able to get a glimpse of how they started and what their humble beginnings were and how things have morphed into more complicated work. And, but everyone starts somewhere. And I think that is something that I, when I was reading through the journal, that was wonderful to see, that anyone could pick up this publication and say, oh, I could do this. This is attainable. Like I can actually, I don't have to have a degree in engineering to maybe learn how to incorporate some of these more complicated things into there's no such thing as, this is just my opinion, someone who is born with the talent to do all of this stuff. We all have to learn.
No, definitely not. That's, we have to start somewhere. Yeah. I would say I was the least natural sewer in the world when I first started. I have no natural ability in that direction at all. And now I would say it's definitely my best skill, because I pursued it and I pushed and I wanted to learn, and it wasn't because, I've got a natural talent for using a sewing machine. No, it's because I practice every day, It doesn't happen overnight. So I think that's something amazing. The thing with the journal that you picked up on that we really wanted to show was that anybody can do this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like, I didn't feel like we needed to have tutorials in there, because the internet's full of that. There's loads of groups online, there's loads of YouTube videos, but to have somebody say, and have someone sitting there and saying, look, I might be here now, but I started at this point and I learned and I went to school and I went online and I taught myself, all of that. I think that's so much more encouraging than necessarily being confronted with a tutorial where you have to follow each step and it'll look like this, because that doesn't always work. You can follow the steps as best you want. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to look like the end product.
Right.
Whereas having someone go, I did it and I practiced and I learned and I improved and I made mistakes along the way and it was hard. Yeah. That's so much more encouraging, because you can see yourself in that. Whether that person's doing the skills you particularly want to do, whether they're, they might be a prop maker, whereas you particularly like sewing or wigs or something. But if they're sat there going, hey, look, I spent 15 years building up my abilities, you're going to go, oh, okay, cool, well, I can do this too. Okay, it might take me 15 years, right. But that doesn't mean me being bad at this right now is anything. So it's very important to kind of tell people that, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So often we only see the finished product.
Yeah.
And that's not just the finished product of months of work, it's the finished product of, years of being at university or at school and learning, or, maybe you're lucky enough to come from a family that's very crafty, or, you've been teaching yourself on and off for a few years. Like, you never see that behind the scenes thing. You only see what's at the end.
Yeah. Right.
And as a community, I think we need people to go. And again, it's something that happens very much in the SheProp group and in other groups I'm in online, where people are there going, I've been doing this for freaking years. Like, I love the thing where it's like, oh, this is me when I started, and this is me now, and showing the difference. And it's so great, I think. So
people are way too used to instant gratification, so people think it can be done overnight, and things that look simple. They look simple because they practiced and honed it to make it look flawless. Nothing is as easy as it looks, and that's the most important thing that people have to learn and accept.
Sorry, I split my nail. Okay.
That's okay.
Shut up about your suffering.
Alright, keep going.
Yeah, so it's like the instant gratification. The instant gratification that people are used to. They need to learn and desensitize from that and really get used to that. Because it's all honed.
Yeah.
You ruined my vibe. I was like going on that.
It's okay. I think it's just as important to be transparent and honest about your successes as you are with your not necessarily failures. I've talked about this before in prior podcasts, and that a failure is just something that you've learned. You've just learned not to do it that way. And sharing those things, you don't have to be careful about And I wish everyone would do this. You're like, oh, I totally messed up on this. Look, this is what it looks like when you do this.
When I
and I'm
myself
sharing with you.
Yeah, you painted yourself with alcohol-based paint, and it wouldn't come off.
It wouldn't come off.
Would not.
I really wanted to make my prawn, and I was like so worried if I did it in the summer, it would just melt off. And I hadn't really worked with body paint before, but I asked all these people that do the same costume. I was like, hey, so what do you use? It doesn't come off. And they're like, oh, I used alcohol-based paint. I was like, cool. How do you remove it after applying it? They went, oh, well, I'm allergic to coconut oil, but that works. Didn't work for me.
Oh, no.
I was like faintly blue for at least a week.
Yeah, it was really funny.
And it was around my eye as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Never did that
And
again.
we didn't do that again, and I only cosplayed him once. And it was in the winter in Germany where it was snowing, so no chance of sweating. It was fine there. No, it was good.
Yeah, and we
we
had one recently where I was rooting a wig. And I've been following a tutorial that's been made by a girl in the States, and so she'd just been like, get surgical spirits or rubbing alcohol, that'll do the job. And I was like, cool. And did not realize that in the UK, if you buy either of these products, they're made with oil. Whereas, like, if you buy them in the drugstore in the States, they're not, apparently, or at least in certain areas.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that, because I was like, well, I was just following this tutorial, and I assumed they were the same. No. Or at least where she was like, this is totally fine. And so I just rooted like half this wig, and I was like, why isn't this like drying properly? Why has it got like this?
Yeah, because I got my irons and I started fixing it.
Yeah, we were like fixing the ends, and we were like, this isn't right. And I had to wash the whole wig out to get the oil out of it.
Oh my
and
gosh.
had to completely start again.
Yeah, because of the oil, none of the ink set in, so it all came out. So all your hours and hours of work gone.
Oh my gosh! And I'm sure there must have been a deadline that you were trying to reach.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I'm still going on this costume. I've got like 3 months left, I think.
3 months.
3 months. Yeah, it's okay. This was right at the beginning of the process, so at least it was an early mistake. But
still a hard one.
Yeah,
hard one to accept.
I've been like, I spent like 20
You're like, what one do I go for now? Because you went for a cheap route.
Yep.
Because it's cheaper to get a medical one than a SFX one.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I had to learn the hard way on that.
It's okay. I learned.
Yeah.
I learned. But like wigs are not my forte at all. I'm very much learning wigs at the moment, and so I feel like I'm going to make a lot more mistakes.
Yeah.
But you know, it's okay.
But you got to own them.
Exactly. And I
enjoy
actually, what I did was I'd been putting the progress up in my my Instagram story, and so when this went all wrong, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just put in my Instagram story that we had to wash it out. And so it was like I kept it there, and I've kept it in the work in progress book that I'm making, saying that I did have to do that, and I did have to fix it and change it, because even though it's for a competition, I'm like, well, I might as well own the fact that I made a mistake and I had to fix it.
Yeah.
Because the judges will appreciate that. They'll appreciate that you've got, well, I learned, you know.
Yeah, and you also noticed with the wig, it took the shine out because you used a certain wash, so it actually made it look more natural, as pink hair can look natural as possible. You know? So, yeah, pink hair. Yeah, I definitely think we should be owning things like the mistakes we make and the fact that we've taken a long time to get somewhere. It's important. Absolutely. Yeah. I also mildly jealous of all these people who are coming, like everyone who's coming into cosplay like now, when I'm like, you have so many resources. When I started cosplaying 10 years ago, we barely had YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
It wasn't the same.
No.
But then you have all of those years of experience under your belt, and
and I now also have all those resources. So it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Moments of, I wish I'd had that. I wish I'd been able to have that. Never mind. It's good though. It's good.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible what we have at our fingertips, really, and all the tutorials. And I mean, in some ways, it's almost overwhelming when you're trying to learn something new. And I love the SheProp group because we can just pop a question in there real quick. And I mean, I know I can go to YouTube and figure this out, but you know, I'd rather ask my little group.
Yeah,
I love that group.
I think and sharing all that information is just strengthens the community.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't necessarily want someone to go, hey, how did you make this whole costume? Because you'll be there like,
First of all, where do I begin?
Yeah, that's a big question. But like, if you just did some, so I was talking with Izza, who's in the SheProp group, and she's awesome. And we've been friends forever. And I was like, I don't even know where to begin making armor. Like, that's just not something I understand. I don't understand how to do patterns. And so she was just like, why don't you come over and we'll have a day where you can show me how to do sewing and I'll show you how to do armor. And I was like, yeah. So we spent like a whole, I think it was 2 days in the end.
Oh, wow.
And I stayed over, yeah, where I made her a basic block for one of her a dress she needed to make, and I took the measurements and made the block form for her and fitted it and showed her where the darts and everything go. And she helped me make the armor patterns that I needed for both my chest plate and pauldrons. And it was really good because it meant that because we were doing it together, other, to a greater or lesser extent, could start understanding what was happening.
Yeah.
And that was great. And that's what I love about groups like this as well, because if someone's made a tutorial, they can just share it. They can be like, you can be like, hey, how do I do this? And someone go, oh, here's this resource.
Yeah.
Rather than you having to hunt through hours of the internet. And often, if that person finds this resource, you can normally go, oh, okay, I don't necessarily understand this step. What did you mean by this? And they'll be able to explain it to you. And that personal community level is really important. I think it's very good.
Absolutely.
So.
And you can have all the little extra tidbits as well.
Yeah.
You can have all the sneaky, like, oh, you could use this, but I use this because I have this effect on it. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go with you that. You know, idea.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, Meg, I wanted to ask you some questions. There in the new volume, there is a section about posing for photography, which I think is great, and I think that's an arena that I think a lot of folks are still trying to find. I think for me, and I'm getting a little better at it. My husband is a photographer, so I have a little bit of an advantage. I'm always practicing with him. But for someone who is new, do you have any tips? Something that you would give, like a newer cosplayer or someone that has a new costume, and they're just entering into like the first photo shoot, or they're, what kinds of advice would you give?
Alrighty, so I would say practice in front of a mirror and build your confidence that way. So you know your typical poses, because when you're at a convention, you have the flyby photographers that will be like, can I get a quick picture of you? And then you have the photographers that will be like, right, let's set something up. So if you're doing your flyby photographers, you want to have your typical free action pictures of being dynamic, or with a weapon, just knowing your angles. And then if you're with the photographers that are setting stuff up, there needs to be more communication from both sides. Because if the photographer is just taking the snaps and you're not getting the feedback, you might not like something. You might say, oh, no, I've got a bit of a double chin because I'm doing a weird down posture look. I'm not comfortable with that. So it's not only just on the cosplayer side, but it's also on the photographer side to give that confidence to the cosplayer, especially if it's their first shoot. It's really important to communicate and not be shy of going, oh, no, you're pulling a bit of a strange face. How about we reset, like relax? And then how about you think about this instead? Because we do a lot of testing. Like me and Ollie do a lot of shoots together. And it's really handy because Holly knows how to work in front of the camera. But sometimes you'll be like, nope, your face has just gone beyond what's okay. Reset. Reset.
You'll be like, oh,
yeah, you'll be like, but it's like, so for the cosplayer, it's not to be shy about asking the photographer what's going on and what they're seeing, just so you can go, oh, I don't really like how my body's really twisted. I don't like that. And then you'll be like, okay, so how about you widen your stance instead of facing away? And it is, I think, just being more comfortable to communicate is the number one thing. Like, if you have that, then you can build something together and you feel happy with it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I think from the cosplay point of view, so if you're in front of the camera, a big thing to do is not just only practice in the mirror, but find as many 3/4 or full body shots of the character as possible, and look at their standing stance. So you can if you can copy that, when I'm learning a new character, I'll often get a lot of pictures of them either on my phone or my laptop, or print them out and put them around my mirror and have them there. I can practice the facial expressions, the look. If it's a specific actor, so someone like Eddie Redmayne, he has very standard looks in certain places, that kind of thing, and then you kind of get them in your head. Sometimes, like, we often will be like, okay, certain songs help me get into this character or something, so you put them if you're in studio, having the music on
Yeah.
of certain characters or a certain feel. So if like, you're doing something like punky, maybe like Blondie, something like that.
Yeah.
So you can really kind of get into the mood of it. Like, you don't just have one sense when you're in front of the camera.
Absolutely.
You're not just physical. You need to get your head in the game.
It's a methodical process of getting there. Definitely, like, even down to the way they walk. Like, when we're Hux and Kylo Ren, we get our, like, murder faces on, and people move out the way. And it's great, because then you don't have to worry about the lanes in the cosplay areas.
Yeah.
You be like, oh, it normally takes 10 minutes, but it's 5 minutes for us, because we're Kylo and Hux. Which is great. And, you really gotta, like, assume this persona, and if you assume a persona, it becomes much easier to get in front of that camera and just be grumpy, because not everyone's smiley and happy and joyful. You can be a horrible sinful character, like Hux, and shout very strange things in front of the camera to get the right face, which is quite fun.
My gosh.
The other thing is just the communication thing. You're right, and not being shy with your photographer. If you're being a character who's quite out there in any way, whether that be anger or emotional or they're really happy or whatever, if you can ask your photographer, can I yell at you? Can I be kind of using you as a prop almost?
Yeah.
If you've got a person there, you should the best way to get something to look real is to do it.
Be verbal and because I had a Wolverine and we were in the middle of the convention floor. And I was like, oh, yeah, do the typical, like, Wolverine, like, you're reaching out with your claws and you're going, rah. Yeah. And he was like, okay. And he just went, rah. And everyone around us just looked. And I was like, oh, my God, if you told me that you were going to go at full volume, I would have been a bit more prepared. But everyone's staring at us now. I'm scared.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that's really getting into character. But that's great, though. And I think that the energy behind something like that really translates in the photo.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I did something like that recently in a shoot for my Ravenna, the Gold Queen. And the photographer is wonderful. His name is Koopa Photo. And he said, okay, I want to, because he does amazing composites. He said, okay, I want you to get like really expressive, and I want you to do the part. There's a scene in the movie where she is kind of screaming, and she's got this like black, like she's about to die, and she's got this black stuff, and it's like she's this last moments, and she's trying to regain control of things, and she just can't, and so she's screaming. And so I'm sure everybody in there knew that I was going to be doing that. And that was the first time I'd ever done that before. And that was kind of cool. But it really required me to kind of let go just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had to remember, like, I spent a long time on this costume. I can spend just a few moments getting a little bit maybe uncomfortable, but to put myself out there and try this. Like, this is a new thing for me. Try it out. And it was great.
Yeah, it's a good feeling because you know if you're giving it 110%, you're going to get such a good reward from doing that. Yeah. And it's a laugh. You can laugh about it afterwards. You got to have no shame. Yeah. In some ways like that. Mm-hmm. Just go for it. Just really enjoy it. Be the character because it's a good reward afterwards.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that the Cosplay Journal has such a photography-oriented presence, because that I feel like that is an important part of the cosplay world. Because we go to conventions and we interact with photographers, and we want to have these amazing photos of our work, and we spend so much time on this. So it's nice to have the perspective and the influence of the photographer. Absolutely. So great. Yeah. Will you be adding more photography kind of tips and highlights and things like that in future publications?
Well, not into Volume 3, because Volume 3 is more focused on, I think, it did have a theme, and then
it sort of fell.
It kind of fell apart because people dropped out, but that's fine. That happens. But it's more, we're looking more into things like we have in Volume 3, we're looking at a piece by a psychiatrist about consent.
Oh, wow.
And the idea behind sexual consent and how that translates to environments like cosplay, because it's so important. It is a community that is full of young people and a lot of young girls and they are often in vulnerable positions, and that's something where we need to talk about it. We can't shy away from it. We can't be embarrassed about it. We have to talk about it. Especially with things like the Vic Mignogna stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Recently, someone who was like a mainstay of conventions for a long time, who had, a lot of access to young girls, I can't take advantage of that. It's something where we felt it was very important to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have that. We also have a piece on race facing going into volume 3. Oh yeah, it's all light. It's all fun.
Yeah. Got the nice ones out of the way, now it's time to cut in so hard and be like, hey.
Yeah. But we also have a piece on puppet making, so it's fun.
Yeah, so we have puppet making, so it's fine.
Puppet making. But volume 4 is the plan is to have another photography-based piece, another kind of expose.
Yeah.
Photography one from another cosplay photographer.
Well, we have expressions in.
Oh, we do. We have an expressions tutorial.
Yeah, so we're talking about not just body posture and how to pose, but it's more about the expressions and how. How you use your face and the best, most efficient way of using your face.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Understanding face
Yeah,
muscles.
absolutely. Yes, and we have our photography team is all assigned female.
Yes.
At birth.
Yeah. So that's the big one we have.
Yeah, they're all gals and non-binary pals.
Yes, they are.
That's awesome.
I think a big part of what I was doing when I was putting the team together was to try and bring people who I felt would give a different perspective on things, as I've talked about. And one of the big things I noticed was, and this is not to say that male photographers are not good. They're amazing, and there's lots of amazing male photographers out there. They're all great and wonderful to work with. This is not anything to do with them. But I wanted to completely remove the male gaze from the journal. And to do that meant working predominantly, not always, but predominantly with female or female assigned photographers, because you get a completely different perspective. I think the most obvious one of that is actually in the second volume with the Black Panther shoot, where you have Black Panther, who's a superhero, and he's often portrayed, and as many male superheroes are portrayed as, very strong and masculine and Wolverine and
all muscles.
All muscles, whereas the shoot we did for Black Panther is he's powerful, but it's like this soft, kingly. He's very, you respect this man,
his kingdom,
but he's not intimidating in a way that you're scared of him. You're more like, I respect him, and that was a really interesting shoot to do, because even the cosplayer was like, oh, I haven't really shot him like this before. It was very different.
It was new for most people involved.
Yeah, so that was a big thing we wanted to do with the photography.
Yeah.
Was to kind of focus in on making it feel very much its own thing, and to keep that feeling with all the different photographers that we work with. Yeah,
we take location very seriously.
Yeah. That being said, I think the featured photographer in Volume 4 is Carlos.
Yes.
Carlos Adama Photography, or it will be. He has said yes. Whether he changes his mind, well, I say this now. It's it could completely change. Who knows?
No, we've said it now.
We've said
he has to do it.
has to happen.
And who is another wonderful photographer who I've worked with. He's great, and I've worked with him for many, many years.
Lovely guy.
So good, so great. And I think that's going to be very different, which will be good and very interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be cool.
It's lovely seeing everyone's styles, because you do go, oh, that's my one. Oh no, that's Laura's, and it's really nice.
That's fancy.
Yeah, it is really great, because we all have different backgrounds from our photography as well. Xanthi, as far as cinematographer, and Laura does more wedding-based stuff, but she's also we all dip our toes in the cosplay community, so it's just different areas. I really enjoy editing. I prefer that process more so than actually taking the shot. Sorry. Yeah. But I really do enjoy bringing out we shot the Vicky, who's our front cover on Volume 2, in the least suspecting place for a mermaid photo shoot. It was by this river. It didn't smell too great. It was a factory. There's a factory in the background where I had to shop that out. There's a car park in the background, which I think even in some of the photos you can still see the glints of the cars. And I'm I couldn't do that. And I had to edit you out loads of photos with full body shots of.
Oh my gosh! I never would have even
I would love people to try and spot my big edits because
oh my gosh,
playing light stands.
Yeah, basically because you're not too familiar with how light works, you're learning, and I'm very proud of you. But issue 1 had no lighting except for reflecting sunlight. Yeah. That is all we did, because I just didn't have the budget for it. I just didn't have the money. And then I went, I kind of do need that, because once we got to Ghost Rider and his lighting, it was impossible to light him. It was very difficult because of all the light on his head.
Yeah. Sure.
We used camera light phones to get the light on his face again. And
wow.
it worked, but it was like, oh gosh, that's not so pro-fresh of us.
I think the funniest one was the volume first we did, and we were literally at a convention, and we just lost the light, and we were like, what are we going to do?
We had a very dramatic day, because you almost thought...
Oh yeah, I mean,
that's a whole nother story.
But we were in the garden, Airbnb, working with this cosplayer, and we were like, we've lost the light. I don't know
completely
what to do.
black.
Completely
it's
dark.
October.
And he was like, I've got some torches in my other costume, so go and grab them. We were like, yes. And we lit the entire thing with these,
2 torches and my
torches and a phone.
It worked. They're beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
It's great.
And sorry, the torch meaning for me
flashlight.
Flashlight.
Yeah, flashlight.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, you're not lighting anything on fire.
No, a flashlight. We did nearly light something
We did
on fire.
light something on fire.
That was other things.
That was
not to do with the journal. That was just me being an idiot.
Gosh.
That was a fun time.
We'll have to do another podcast sometime of the stories behind the stories.
Yeah, the photography mistakes.
Yeah. Everything that went wrong.
Yeah, the do's and don'ts of photo shoots is be fire trained if you're going to work with fire.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so we can find. So you can find the journal, Cosplay Journal, volumes 1 and 2 on Amazon right now.
You can also order them in Barnes and Noble and Foil. You have that in the States, so you can get that, or you can, if you go on our website, which is thecosplayjournal.com, nice and easy, literally, and go through to new issue, you will find every single link to where you can get it around the world. Every single one you can get.
Good archive.
But if in doubt, Amazon. So Amazon, they're not great with small publishers, so it might sometimes get a little delayed, but you will get it eventually. We just want to apologize in advance for Amazon.
It's out of our control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, please go find the newest issue. Go find the first issue, and support this amazing publication, the Cosplay Journal. And we can find you on social media at the Cosplay Journal on Instagram. I did find that. And do you have a Facebook presence as well?
We do. It's just the Cosplay Journal on Facebook. The only one where we're not the Cosplay Journal is Twitter, because I'm an idiot, and so it's just Cosplay Journal with a no.
Wasn't there a limit? There's a limit on Twitter there is a
limit, there is a limit, but it's not because of that. It's because I forgot why I signed up to Instagram as.
You fool!
I know. It's,
but Cosplay Journal, it works better.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So you can find us pretty much everywhere.
Yes. We're very connected.
We are. We try to be, anyway. So yeah, search for the Cosplay Journal on all social media, and you'll be able to find us.
You'll get us.
So,
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this so last minute for me. It's been wonderful. We've been talking for almost an hour.
Yeah, crazy.
I know. We'll have to do it again. I'm reserving some more time with you both for a future date.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And again, listeners, please go check them out online and get their publication and show them some love. This is a really important, amazing project, and it's beautiful. The publication is gorgeous. I've seen it. You're definitely going to want to have that in your library. And again, I'm Beverly from Down in Creative Studios, and see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.